All right. Are you all ready for a poetry slam? Really? You're going to have to do better when Elizabeth Acevedo gets up here. I'm Rob Casper. I'm the head of the Poetry and Literature Center at the Library of Congress, and I'm thrilled and delighted to welcome you to the 6th Annual National Book Festival Youth Poetry Slam. Before I tell you about the slam, I want to say that the Library of Congress is thrilled to have this event here at the Convention Center every year. We hope you come back. We hope you check out all sorts of events next year and in years to come. And we hope you come to the library. It's an amazing building, the Jefferson Building, where the Poetry and Literature Center is located. We're thrilled and honored and excited to host the first Native Poet Laureate of the United States, Joy Harjo, on Thursday, September 19th. So come and see her. You can check us out online at lsc.gov/poetry. It's going to be historic, but of course, tonight is going to be historic too. So this year's Poetry Slam has a strong connection to our very first slam back in 2014, which featured DC Slammers. The DC Youth Slam team is back this year, of course, and big thanks to Split This Rock for all their support with the slam. Split This Rock, come on. Of course, there's a wealth of slam talent in the region that we want to highlight. So this year we have slammers from the youth poetry team from More Baltimore, as well as the Rise Youth Poetry Team from Phoenix Youth Project in Salisbury, Maryland. They know how to cheer in Salisbury. I'm going to do this little thing. Please indulge me because I want to just say how special all these teams are. We asked each team to fill us in on their mission and let us know their thoughts about attending the slam. So let me just say, Split This Rock, sponsors of the DC Youth Slam team, wrote, Split This Rock's mission is to cultivate, teach, and celebrate poetry that bears witness to injustice and provokes social change. Indeed. Split This Rock champions young voices, seeing them as a key agent in moving culture forward. Split This Rock is excited to participate in the National Book Festival because it is an opportunity to widen youth platforms, deepen engagement with local and national literary communities, and of course, have fun. So let's give it up for Split This Rock. Here's what Phoenix Youth Project had to say. Phoenix Youth Project encourages youth to use their creative talents to impact social change in their community. The Rise Youth Poetry Team is excited and ready to experience this year's MBF. The team hopes to bring back memories and inspiration to share back on the Eastern Shore. So please give it up for Phoenix Youth Project. And finally, More Baltimore wrote, we develop safe space, build writing skills, and teach youth how to advocate about issues that impact them on a daily basis. We are excited about participating in this year's MBF Youth Slam and celebrating the power and purpose that storytelling can play in the lives of young people. More Baltimore, everyone. So I have one last duty before I get back up on the stage to hand out the prizes for third, second, and first place, and that is to introduce our MC. 6 years ago, at the first Youth Poetry Slam, we asked a very promising young poet to take on the role. Well, I'm delighted to say she's back, and now she's a major poet and writer. Elizabeth Acevedo is the New York Times best-selling author of The Poet X and With a Fire on High. Where are you, Elizabeth? There you are. Come on. As you all probably know, The Poet X won the 2018 National Book Award for Young People's Literature. Elizabeth has also been the recipient of the Prince Award for Excellence in Young Adult Fiction, the Silip Carnegie Medal, the Boston Globe Horn Book Award, and the 2019 Puri Belpré Author Award for celebrating, affirming, and portraying Latinx culture and experience. A National Poetry Slam champion and former head coach of the DCU Slam team. She is also a proud resident of the district. Please join me in welcoming her to this stage.
Good afternoon. Don't be dry. Don't do that. This is going to be such an exciting evening. I am delighted to be here. I have not hosted a slam probably since 2014, and so I am so hyped that this is the one that I get to be a part of and to usher these poets who are about to come onto the stage. But there's a couple of things that need to happen first. So I'm gonna explain the structure of the night. I'm gonna let you know your job, because you are not just here to like sit quietly and listen and like pat on your hand. Like, you got a role as well. And I'm gonna start off with your role, right? Because you can't be extra shy when the poets come onto the stage, right? We are talking about poets who are gonna come up here and talk about the issues they care about things that have happened to them, about what they find most important in the world and in their lives. And so I'm gonna need you to show them a lot of love. So if a poet comes up to this stage and they are shy and they are scared and they are nervous and they don't know what kind of reception they're gonna receive, when I call their name, how are you going to respond? Okay. I mean, that was all right. That was all right. Let's say the youngest member of your family is about to touch on this stage and they got a flame poem. That joint is everything, right? And you are the person who's gonna have to hype them up. They are so scared, they were in the back crying. How are you going to ensure that the youngest member of your family gets all the love they receive so they can do that poem to the best of their ability? Okay. Word. That was better. That was good. You're going to have to maintain that same energy for approximately 12 rounds. So keep it up. I believe in you. You got this. All right? There are going to be 12 poems you hear before each one of those poems. You're going to do that, including the sacrificial poet, which I'm going to explain right now. So here is the structure of this poetry slam. It is 2 rounds. The first round is going to be a poem that is on theme. All of the writers, all of the poets you're gonna see received notice that they had to write a poem that had something to do with storytelling or literacy or books, or in some capacity is related to this festival. And that can be anything from a story they heard to an interaction they've had with the educational system. It can be broad, but it has to be related. That is the first round. And there are 6 poets who are going to do all of the poems related on that. The second round is an open round. It is where the poet is going to get on stage and they're going to do whatever poem they have on their heart today, or whatever they feel like sharing with you all in this space in particular. Make sense? Before any of those poets come up here, though, we're going to have a sacrificial poet. That is a poet, some folks giggle because you haven't been to a slam before, but this, I'm about to let y'all in on the cuteness / the severity, the savageness of what it is to have a poetry slam. Because we don't let anybody get on stage without spilling blood, right? We gotta make sure that our judges know what they are about to hear. We gotta make sure that the bar is set as high as possible. So we invite a poet to the stage that is not a part of the slam, and they are just here to perform the poem so that we can all get our temperature check. So we're prepared when the poets come up. So they're gonna be technically 7 poets, although one of them will not be repeating because they are just here to calibrate the judges. All right, let me make sure I got all of my stuff together. We do have judges. We do have judges, and they're fantastic, and I'm gonna tell you about them in a second, but first, the rules. The rules are all the poems have to be 3 minutes, approximately. We're gonna be generous with that 3 minutes, but poets, 3 minutes. Don't make me come on stage and like Apollo you out. Make sure you do your 3 minutes. We are going to make sure that all of it is original work. You're not reciting someone else's poem, and you are not allowed to use a costume or a prop. You are not allowed to do a team poem. We're not gonna have extra people come on this stage. It's just you and this mic. All right, we're good? So now I'm gonna introduce you all, although they really don't need introduction, to the judges. Here are the 3 literary figures that we have called upon to ensure that they do the best they can right, to really listen to these poems and show generosity to these poems and score these poems. These 3 judges are going to hold up a scorecard from 0 to 10 after every single poet is done. I will then read those scores out loud, and we will determine the score that the poet received overall. This is an incredibly hard job, right? And our judges are going to be mindful that a 0 is like, this is the worst poem you ever heard. They insulted your mama, they insulted your great aunt, they said your cooking ain't nothing. Like, this is, you gotta really be like, that is just terrible, right? That's a 0. A 10 though, right? Because sometimes people be real quick with their 10s. You gotta hold your 10s close. Right, you gotta be mindful of your 10. Your 10 is like, man, I just had sweet potato pie that smacked me across the face. I had one of those days when like I woke up and I thought I had to go to work, but then realized it was Saturday and I got to sleep in. That joyous moment where you're like, ooh, this is gonna be a good day. If that poem evokes that feeling in you, where you're like, I could hear this again and again and again, that is a 10. Everything else is probably somewhere in between. All right? We're good on that? Word. So, your judges for tonight, the people who will have this illustrious job, the first writer is Raina Telgemeier. Clap it up for Raina. Yeah. And I'm gonna read official bios because I don't like it when people just be making stuff up on the spot. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the words right for Raina. With more than 15 million books in print, Raina is one of the most critically acclaimed and successful graphic novelists of her generation. She is the #1 New York Times bestseller, creator of Smile and Sisters. Give it up for that. That #1 spot ain't easy. I'm trying to know. She has received, for more than 4 years, received a Boston Globe Horn Book Honor, as well as the Eisner Award for the Best Publication for Teens, and Sisters received the Eisner Award for Best Writer Artist. Telgemeier is also the creator of Drama, a fictional graphic novel that was named an American Library Association Stonewall Honor Book and is also a #1 New York Times bestseller. Ghost was awarded the 2017 Eisner Award for Best Publication for Kids. Her recent book is Share Your Smile, Raina's Guide to Telling Your Own Story. Clap it up for Raina. This next writer is incredibly prolific and one of my favorite writers of all time, Julia Alvarez. Julia Alvarez left the Dominican Republic for the United States in 1960 at the age of 10. She is the author of 6 novels, 3 books of nonfiction, 3 collections of poetry, and 11 books for children and young adults. Alvarez has taught and mentored writers in schools and communities across America, most recently as a writer in residence at Middlebury College until her retirement in 2016. She is a co-founder and convener of Border of Lights, a collective of activists committed to promoting peace and solidarity between the Dominican Republic and Haiti. In 2009, her novel, In the Time of the Butterflies, was elected by the National Endowment for the Arts for its National Big Read program. Please clap it up for Julia Alvarez. This next writer, Teri Cross Davis, is the author of Haint. She is a winner of the 2017 Ohio Anna Book Award for Poetry. She is a Cave Canem Fellow and works as the poetry coordinator for the Folger Shakespeare Library in Washington, D.C. She puts on some of the most amazing events that this city sees. So I need you all to put your hands together for somebody who is local to the city, Teri Cross Davis. All right, audience, that's my spiel. That's the most you're going to hear me speak all night. Right now, we are about to have the first poet come up. On deck, we have Destiny Butler. So Destiny, I need you to be ready. But right now, and audience, y'all gonna show up, right? Okay, I'm gonna make sure I have my name right. Hold on, give me 1 second. I got a lot of papers. On deck, Destiny Butler, but right now, the first poet of the night, sacrificing to ensure that this slam goes well. Please put your hands together for Jordan Shabani. Keep on clapping until Jordan is on stage.
To you, my drowning looks like swimming. Crazy, insane, and the audience of my story thinks I am to blame. Why are you not eating? Why are you so flaky? Why are you so moody? Telling me to think of happy thoughts, like I'm not trying, like I can control the way it feels. Simple tasks become tragedies, my homework shipwrecked across my kitchen table, conversations, safety jackets I don't wear. I try to maintain relationships, but I am submerged. How did I get to this point where moments fade in and out, casual chaos lives within and about? Every breath means I'm one step closer to the end of the day, so I stop holding it, pray. I don't wake up each morning, my mind foggy with questions lighthouses can't cut through. Why do I feel this way? Is it because of an unloving mother? She tells me she loves me every day, so then why do the monsters like to dwell in my head, cast shadows that make me believe that I'm better off dead? I wish I could tell you what having depression feels like. But like water, it shape-shifts, turns molehill to mountain, an emotional roller coaster I did not line up for, cannot get off of, fluctuates like the tide. Anxiety moves me like a current, swaying me into a fear-induced frenzy, a leg that won't stop moving. You think it a tectonic plate, causing a tsunami, leaving a population of one. It causes me agony, causes me grief, causes me worry. I lie awake and I worry in sleepless days and restless nights, imagining reality as a phantom, silence the only constant, yet in here it echoes. When lights are low, I'm once again left alone. Siren song beckons me into the deep and I follow. I think if I was smarter and just a tad bit wittier, if I was smaller and just a tad bit skinnier, then I would be fine. But sadly, life just isn't that kind. I think happiness wasn't meant to be. Happiness was meant for someone who worked harder than me. And I know this is something that you might not understand because it's something that you haven't witnessed firsthand. I remember how things were. Genuine feeling didn't have to be cultivated. I laughed because I meant it. I was close to everyone that I loved, but I am drained of what I once was. Excitement, now an obligation. Smiles plastered on a face waiting to cry, and the voices in my mind occupy the space where comfort lived. I'm no longer the captain of my own ship, walking the plank to dive headfirst into waters filled with creatures of my own creation. Just because they aren't tangible doesn't mean they aren't there, that I can't feel them wrap around me, pull me down into the deep. Lifeless, losing consciousness. I wave my hand for help, but all you see is hello.
Keep it going for Jordan. Judges, this is the most time I am going to give you. This is the Sacrificial Poet. Everything that you hear after this will be determined according to how you felt about this poet. So score from low to high. For Jordan, we have an 8. Listen to the poem! If you all hear a score that you're not feeling, audience, you're allowed to yell, listen to the poem. That is allowed. If you hear a score you really like, you're allowed to cheer. You are a part of this slam. The second score is also an 8. And the third score is a 9.4. On deck, representing Rise Poetry, we have Haven Crespo. But right now, coming to the stage, please put your hands together for Destiny Butler from Do More. Destiny Butler from More Baltimore. I'm gonna raise it a little bit. Is that okay?
I'm a be more poet, be more poet. So I travel around the world trying to see more poets, but I ain't never seen nothing like a be more poet. They say the Bible is the most read title in the world. So my father makes himself God. Says himself good at seasons, lets his cold fronts meet his warm fronts, and leaves me to be and weather the storm. Believes he is raising hell, sees me a burning bush, a manifestation of himself, sees my tears like the Red Sea. Parts them as passageways for his trauma, and the devil may care, but my father doesn't. For the devil has no place in this church, this home, or maybe this spirit, so my father carries on, leaving me to carry his sins, and I sometimes agree that my father is a God. The only way I can understand myself being crucified, while I'm constantly burned at the stake. See, I'm usually burned by his mistakes, and I often see my father like the earth. The way he makes mountains out of his mold, freckle-bodied, and lets himself avalanche. Leaves me in the rubble, leaves me holier than thou, and maybe that's why I'm never whole around him. See, my father has a spine like a roadway, says he can manage the curves, says there's no need in whining about the winding path his body has become, says here, sciatica and slip discs are more like speed bumps than stoplights. So my mother tells me I'm not an architect, not here to fix his faulty construction, but I remind her that Jesus was a carpenter, and if he could find a way to walk on water, then maybe I could find a way to make my father love his daughter. So on the first day, I built hope and watched my home be destructed, and I wept like Jesus, and in a way I realized I am like Jesus. So I asked my God, why had he forsaken me? And in a way I didn't know whether I should praise him for creating me or rebuke him for never raising me. See, I just wanted to be his Lazarus. But my father knows himself a decaying temple, a house soon to be divided. My father knows the Israelites walked 40 years through the desert. But if the road to being a good father will take his last 40 steps, see, that is not a trip that he can chance. For my father is a circle of a man, believing that all begins and will end with him. Soon my father will not be able to walk. Either way, I don't think he wanted to step in the right direction. So today, I become an atheist, realizing I can no longer praise a man whose praise belongs only to himself, can no longer care for a man who cares more about himself than his daughter. See, I have never been that kind of savior.
People always ask me if I'm gonna write a sequel to The Poet X, and I'm like, nah, I wrote the poem. Like, I wrote this book about a young woman who discovers slam, and then I come to slam like this, and I'm like, I might have to, right? Because I'm just so moved by, like, what y'all do and what y'all represent that, like, I'm inspired, y'all, so thank you so much. Right now, from low to high, we have an 8.5, a 9.3, and a 9.5. But give it up for the poet. On deck, representing the DC Youth Slam team, we have Amina Fatima. But coming to the stage right now, please put your hands together for Haven Crespo. Okay, lower. Can you just step up so I can see you?
Being mixed has its perks. It's ups and downs. But schooling and education is slightly hard to bear, especially when the two races I'm mixed with are stereotyped as anger and aggression. Yes, we've all heard at least one poem that was about African American culture, but at this point, there's so many of them. The African American side of me feels mocked and almost ashamed because of these people, while the Hispanic side of me doesn't really care much of it. What the Hispanic side of me does care about is that just because I'm half Hispanic, people assume that I can translate anything in Spanish for that. I always tell them I know the basics. Ella, hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Y dónde eres tú? It gets really annoying. But anyways, back to the whole schooling education part. For my sisters and I, being different tones of brown yet all from the same mom confuses others and leads them to assume. Students will ask the teacher if my older sister would be a slave. And when my middle sister, she was just trying to be nice and stand up for someone, but they just said, "You're not black, you wouldn't understand." And what aggravated me the most was when someone asked me if I was adopted when they saw me with my dad. So, to end on a good note, let's try to make it easier on us by simply asking and not assuming our race, because it offends us and makes you look ignorant. Thank you.
Keep it going for Haven. Haven was not here to play with you all. I was sitting on that step like, ooh, I feel like I just got my whole life collected real quick. From a score of low to high, we have a 7.3, a 7.5, and a 7.5, but give it up for the poet. On deck, we have Delicia Green representing More Baltimore, but right now, please put your hands together for Amina Fatima from the DC Youth Slam Team.
The moment my 5-year-old self walked into kindergarten, my eyes lit up as bright as the multicolored alphabet letters strung across the room. The cartoon characters danced on the reading rug, and I found my purple butterfly name tag, Amina. I heard a voice over my shoulder, and I looked up to see a tall and firm-looking woman. She was not smiling. She had this look on her face as if she could see everything that my future held, everything that I'd grow up to be. She said, "I'm Miss Powers." And then it all made sense. Her collar looked like the perfect cover-up under which she'd tie her cape, and the reflection of myself in her glasses made me feel like she had probably just read my mind, seen all there was to see about me, all there ever would be, could be to see one day. And her powerful aura, radiating strength and bravery, made me wonder if maybe she was kindergarten teacher by day and superhero by night. In her classroom, I learned how to count. Count to 10 3 times while washing your hands. I learned scissors are tricky to use, and cutting on the lines was not always the easiest, but failing to do so doesn't make you any less than the kid who got it right the first time. She taught me how to swing between syllables and sounds the way Spider-Man swings from building to building. She gave me a gift. Taught me how to read and rhyme, play with syllables and sounds, how to tell my story. Magic forming on paper, my crayons be my wand, and my alphabet sticker is my spell. With Miss Powers, I learned how to describe things like the bumpy, scaly, orange skin of our classroom fish. I learned that if someone is sitting alone during snack time, it is nice to extend a friendly hand, but with that, I also learned about peanut allergies. And I learned that if you try hard enough to fall asleep during nap time, you might even dream. In her classroom, the ability to imagine. I guess that's why kindergarten is as far back as I can remember, because that is where everything began. She made me recognize the word powers, because it was her name. And also the first thing I saw every morning as I walked in, big, bold blue letters hanging above the glass window on the wooden door. I wanted to put my name up there too. Made me wonder how much growing up I still had left to do before I could be important enough for my name to start someone's day, every day. It's been 12 years, and I have walked through countless classroom doors, been greeted by many different teachers, each one adding to the story that began in 2006. 12 years ago, I didn't know I'd be a hijabi. I didn't know I'd be a poet. 12 years ago, I didn't know I'd become a hijabi poet whose finger painting skills would progress into using words to paint portraits. And I don't know if Miss Powers knew or if Miss Holliday did. Don't know if Miss G saw it coming, if she knew how mighty I'd be with 12 years of superpowers, surpassing the fear of not being enough, the fear of of becoming invisible when all I needed was to be seen, when all I needed was my name. Thank you.
Yes. I know there are so many teachers in the room that are like, yes. I wish someone would send me that poem, right? That's all I want is for my former students to just have those kinds of memories. And for the new teachers, I know school just started, at least in the DC area, so I hope the first week was good and I hope next week is better. Print that poem out, like 300. We're just gonna pass them out at the door. But the scores are up, so I'm gonna, from low to high, we have an 8.7. We have a 9.2 and another 9.2. On deck, representing Rise Poetry, we have Harper Howard, but right now, please put your hands together, representing More Baltimore, Delicia Green. And keep on clapping until Delicia is on stage. How's that, my love? Is that okay? All right.
What if we were allowed to write our own stories? Or what if another black boy from Baltimore was murdered by the police tonight? His body still, his white tee bloody, his true religion jeans soaked in a deep red, his Freddie Gray New Balances stained. His soul is now immortal and drifts until it reaches heaven. But what is his heaven? I mean, when he arrives, do they play Little Scooter instead of gospel hymns? Do the angels wear R.I.P. insert black boy's name on the back of their wings? Does God have straight hair and blue eyes, or does he rock a cruddy in fronts? I mean, what if a black boy's heaven isn't the same hue as the men that killed him? But what if his heaven was in the studio and he raps praises into the mic, and his hymns are beats produced by Metro Boomin, and his homeboys in the back room hyping him up? What if his heaven was a chicken box, salt, pepper, ketchup with a half and half? What if his heaven consisted of him and his dead brothers riding dirt bikes, popping a wheelie every time a cop pops a black boy? What if his heaven was his grandmother, and her hugs were powerful enough to cleanse him of his sins? What if his heaven was at the bus stop with him and his goons in a cipher? What if that was his choir, his praise and worship? What if his heaven was his poetry book or his rhyme book, and the only thing separating him from hell was this audience, or people who cared, or people who listened? What if his heaven was this open mic, or this poetry slam? What if, before he died, He was at the bus stop, signaling for a hack so he could perform at a show. What if he was spitting? And a cop comes, considers him a weapon, says his tongue too sharp, thought his piece was a piece. Police turns himself into a priest, turn his gun into a cross, turns execution into exorcism. The officer will say black boy was possessed by a demon. His skin tone said he had a tone. And by the tone of his voice, he was spitting fire, a dragon, ready to burn the city down, ready to write. What if a black boy could exist in Baltimore as a rapper, as a writer, as an artist, as a poet? What if a black boy could create his own heaven with just poems?
I try to tell y'all. I think what I love most about a poetry slam is that you can't tell what you are about to learn or what you are about to receive. And I love when a slam makes me surprised, when it makes me wonder, when it makes me uncomfortable, particularly when I'm listening to young people, because so often that is the voice that we want to pretend we know, but we don't know. And so when someone comes up here and tells the truth, I'm like, I can tell the truth is being told, right? Because I got the goose pimples to prove it. But I'm not a judge, so I'm going to turn to the people who got the goose pimples written down. We have a 9.1, a 9.5, and a 9.7. On deck, representing the DC Youth Slam team is Gelila Mccannon. But right now, coming up to the stage, please put your hands together for Rise Poetry poet Harper Howard. Is the mic okay?
Yeah,
All
I've
right.
never been in front of this many people before.
Okay. You're okay. Take a deep breath. You got it.
When I was in middle school, I got in more trouble for reading than I did for acting out. My face was always smothered in the warmest embrace I knew, a riveting plot line. I was addicted to books. The words ran through my veins like a virus infecting my body. The story, my last meal in weeks, each page a calorie, each chapter a plate I just couldn't put down. Without a book, I just couldn't seem to feel whole because it wasn't always that way. I didn't get no cliche childhood, no teenage drama because my mother decided that chasing a dragon was easier feat than raising 4 kids. She learned to tango with the devil with her self-injected poison, and she seemed the lust for it outgrew the love for us and the homes that we resided in. When I was in 1st grade, I told my teacher I can't read because going from house to house means different school, and different schools are always at different places, and everyone's at different paces, and I couldn't even seem to know the basics. But my only choice was to face it because my mother went away, and slowly the calls from the prison became sloppily written cursive letters, and those were my favorite fairy tales of hopes of her becoming clean, of her becoming back home, her being my mom, her coming to the school events. But just like the storybooks, we learn not everything has a happy ending. But one thing I did learn is that I could write my own. There you go.
That's Harper Howard. Harper whispered to me before he started reading, I've never been in front of this many people before, and then proceeded to make like half the audience cry, right? The score from low to high, we have a 7.1, an 8.7, and a 9, but give it up for the poet. We are about to listen to the last poet of the first round. Y'all, how y'all feeling? Y'all good? So we are going to start the second round in a little bit, but right now we have the sixth poet coming up that you have not met yet, so we're going to introduce them. On deck for round 2, Destiny Butler will be coming up, but right now, please put your hands together for the poet representing the DCU Slam team, Gelila Mccannon.
Yep. I always thought high school was like a bad dream. Yes. Where the walls would go on forever and you're always stuck with a heavy weight on your back. When every face is slightly familiar, you can't remember which class you have with them, or if you even share a class at all. You don't know how to wake up. On the days where I felt like I was having this repeating nightmare, I wouldn't go to class. I'd enter through the school's front doors and go to the second door on the right, pass by all the computer and English classes until I got to 2 big blue doors. I felt like I was just opening my eyes. When the smell of old ink and sunlight hit me, I would stretch my fingers and practice the art of pulling out an old book. I would always flip the pages too fast, like I was begging for a paper cut. Take on every character like a Halloween costume and lose myself in a world that I believed would love me back. The day I lost my bike, I read a book about a girl who flew dragons. The time I failed a test, I learned of a man who never passed 11th grade but ended up happier than if he had. I remember wanting to write myself in that world, where unexpected endings happen, and girls who start sad leave behind those feelings in the last chapter. I wonder where I would start. In a school that flies or a house near the water? Would I dress in a war skirt or ripped jeans? Or maybe accent with an axe or an iced coffee? Fight for things that matter for me and never cry when I got hurt? Only grew thicker skin laced with tree roots and iron bolts I'd never be laughed at? Only admired, dreamers would finally get to live and no one knew what it meant to lose a friend or family. Loneliness would be treated like a cold and would only be temporary. If I were the author of my own story, I would be the kind of book you wouldn't put down. The first page starts with a girl who fought with her 3rd grade teacher because he made a comment about her hair. The next chapter, a blank page with scribbles because she was so angry she took all the words. The chapter following would be ripped, covered in teeth marks because back then she only knew how to eat her fears away. The climax would be this moment right here because she never thought she'd get this far and she doesn't know if she'll get any farther. But for now, she'll turn the next page and another until this book gets a sequel and then a trilogy because this author doesn't know how to quit. And it'll have no title, so you can't judge me by my cover.
Yep. All the writers in the room just got the advice they needed, right? If you're thinking about quitting on a manuscript, baby girl just told you, get it together, keep on writing, right? We all got revisions to make, including just the life we're living. That was dope. The last poet of the first round received from low to high an 8.5, an 8.7, and a 9. We are going to start the second round, but I do want to give the poets just like a breather, right? Because they're like all anxious and like got all these feelings. And so I just want to get a sense of who's in the room, because it's easy to perform when you know if your kin is here. So I'm going to ask some questions, really like 2. And mostly because I'm curious, because I love food. I'm gonna ask you some food questions. And I just want you to yell out what your preference out of the two options are, right? And this is something that I stole from a poet I love called Lauren May, who is a big fan of tater tots. And so I'm gonna yell out two food items. You're going to yell back the one you love. We're going to try to determine what our room is feeling. Y'all ready? Tater tots or French fries? That was like overwhelmingly French fries. It was. Donuts or cupcakes? There was like someone who was like listening, is like, cupcakes. And the last one, y'all ready? Y'all focused? Tacos? I know it's hard, right? Tacos? Done. Tacos. Tacos or tacos? Tacos or pizza? Ooh, that was close. We're gonna try that again the next round just to see. I'm gonna let you guys like sit with your spirit and see what you're feeling, and we'll regroup after the second round. That was the first round. I appreciate you all being here for the themed round. This is the round where poets will get on stage and do a poem that moves them regardless of whether or not it is related to the theme of books or storytelling. For those of you who are here, who have stayed here, I appreciate you. We need your energy to keep this going, so thank you for being present. Thank you for listening. For folks who are participating and yelling and saying, listen to the poems, feel free to let yourself loose. You are a part of this experience. If you like something, you could yes, you could clap, you could snap, you could All of these things are allowed. Can we practice a together? Ooh, you're cute. All right. On deck, we have representing Rise Poetry, Haven Crespo. But right now, coming to the stage, please put your hands together for the first poet of the second round, Destiny Butler.
You know, I never understood how the hood watch scary movies when the hood feel like Halloween Town. Feels like Sleepy Hollow hollows me out the way I've seen angel-faced boys turn ghoul and goblin. I've seen demons in the costume of protection. I've seen the hood suck out souls and turn people vampire. Sometimes it scares me how they can bearing crosses, be strong enough to symbolize their own kryptonite, and sometimes drug dealers be my superhero. Seem godly, make me wonder if that's why they start turning bodies holy ghost, paint concrete red, make every day the dead, and make me wonder if that's what it means to be black, to have your pain turned pretty. Like, ain't that why we've seen black bodies hung like decoration? Why black culture get turned into, like, totally Coachella, or like, no, like it's totally trending. Like, no, this is definitely not blackface. Why white girl take my almond joy to cover her cookies and cream, then call me a Sour Patch Girl. X why I ain't never sweet, call me bitter. X why black women are so angry, so bitter, so bland. So I bring up Sandra, bring up Corinne, bring up every time a family member of mine got pulled over for, being black. Bring up the time a white officer told 7-year-old me that I looked suspicious. Told me go home, told me stop crying, told me don't you know you old enough to go to jail? And white girl goes silent. I tell her I'm not religious, but in the presence of red and blue lights, I pray that I won't soon see a white one. Pray that if the only way I can find God is in the barrel of a white officer's gun, see, I would rather live in sin. I ask her, has she ever been afraid of the police? Does she think that they will always protect and serve? Does she think that her skin makes her a deadly weapon? I ask her, does she think being black in America is more trick or treat?
I think there's a couple of us in the room who are like, we are part of that Sour Patch Collective. We know what it means. Yes. Scores. We have a 9. We have a 10. And we have a 10. On deck, we have Amina, Fatima, but right now, please put your hands together for Haven Crespo. And y'all know the rules. Y'all clap till Haven is on the stage. Keep it up, keep it up, keep it up, hey! How's that?
Fear. It'll channel through your brain. It's something you can't simply tame. As it is a reaction to something as big as a threat or to something as small as forgotten laundry. Fearing leaves my hands shaking, my body swaying, my eyes wander from left to right. Fear, definition, an unpleasant feeling triggered by the perception of danger, real or imagined. Well, one of my definitions are, that is the feeling of rejection that comes from aggression. I feel the fear, the worry because of the words I can never take back as they fly away into the open world, like a baby bird leaving its nest for good, never to come back. Like, before today even came, I was afraid to stutter, afraid to mispronounce, afraid to forget. I felt the fear rush through my veins and began to raid my body, making me stiff. I can't move a muscle, I can't speak. My mouth is open, my lips are moving, but no words, no sounds can escape. My throat begins to close up, I can't breathe. I can close my eyes and count to 10. I can take slow breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth, but those monsters still lurk through the darkness of your soul, suck the courage and bravery out of you, making you a limp and fearful monster yourself. Hanging from the ceiling of despair, bleeding tears that drop on the floor. Will you let the monsters in? Or will you light a candle to burn them alive? To fear or not to fear? That is the question. Thank you.
On deck, we have Delicia Green. Just being aware of that. I'm gonna read the scores though. I'm gonna pretend I didn't just mess up. Y'all gonna pretend you didn't notice me mess up. The scores for the last poet were a 7.9, an 8.1, and an 8.5. But give it up for the poet. On deck, we have Delicia Green, but right now coming to the stage, please put your hands together for Amina Fatima representing the DC Youth Slam Team. I think it was fine last time, right? Was it okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it, poet. Remember why you wrote it. Don't be nice. Be nasty.
I was 7, the first time someone told me I wasn't American. The first time someone compared my dad to Osama bin Laden, I was 10. And the first time someone called me a terrorist, it was my 13th birthday. My voice shrunk in shock, the audacity to even utter such words, my face red, hot. I remember my eyes welling up with 6 years of frustration. Today, when you ask, where are you from, I stare directly back at you and answer, here. You get upset when I sit for the pledge, tell me to act more American, as if it wasn't you who made me think I'm not American in the first place. But I guess that's why you use the word act. You refer to my hijab as just a piece of cloth, but if I were to say the same thing about your flag, your hands would form fists and fingers would wrap around trigger. You tell me, go back to your country, then when I try, hold me back for random security checks or get me kicked off the plane, I'm labeled dangerous on the news, but I am victim to your abuse, getting screamed at gas stations and followed in the streets. Then you ask why my family doesn't celebrate the 4th of July. I don't know where to go anymore. Don't know if it's real when I feel my neighborhood loving me or if I've imagined it this whole time. When did the change happen? When did you decide I was no longer to be blocked out but forced to claim America as my home? What made you want me? What made you think twice about spitting me out? Maybe it's this platform I have found, this community of fighters fighting to right your wrongs. Maybe it's the way my hijab flows in the wind like a cape or rapid hummingbird wings making the noise of revolution. Growing up, I was taught to keep quiet, never cause any disruptions. But I was also taught to always tell the truth. And I don't know which to do anymore because the words truth and disruption have become a merging road. I was also taught to never make anyone uncomfortable. My very existence defiant in a way that feels like hot wax on your skin. But see, the thing is that if this makes you uncomfortable, you are part of the problem. You expect me to pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the country that has been rejecting my family since they got here. The flag, that piece of cloth that you hold as close to you as if it were a piece of your identity. And maybe it is, and maybe I can respect that. But if and only when you learn that this piece of cloth on my head is just as holy, and these words that have traveled so far and so long to get here, through oceans of ink and roads of paper, and God knows through how many red lights, there is nothing more American than the desire of change than standing up for what you believe in. And if America is what you say it is, then there is nothing, nobody more American than me. Thank you.
I don't got no cute anecdotes. I'm just gonna read the score. We got from low to high, a 9.9, a 10, and a 10. On deck, we have Harper Howard. Right now, we have Delicia Green. Please put your hands out. Show some love to Delicia Green. I know y'all tired. Show some love. Keep it moving. A little bit? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like there? Mm-hmm. Okay.
I am my creator's thoughts, paper personified. I push boundaries and borders. White hands push me into bad neighborhoods, me and crack in competition. We both rock nations. I corrupt black minds, create crackheads, then send them to the pen with just a pen, point, period. Call it unjust. but all is fair in love and the war on drugs. A minimum wage war on poverty, bomb black children with the school to prison pipeline. I don't bang with black people, but I bang black people. I got brands on my back in the name of freedom. I've got names on my back synonymous with freedom. Black ink is smudged on the Bill of Rights, so coloreds already got a taste of freedom. I am Jim Crow reincarnated, kept black people separated with incarceration. I be the law, written by white men with a godlike complex. Write a few amendments, now the commandments. Moses parted the Red Sea, Andrew Jackson parted the Trail of Tears with a treaty. The Constitution is Bible. I am a bill, am an act. Actions speak louder than words. What happens when you are both? Don't you know how much power pieces of paper possess? Whether it be a bill or a bill, freedom papers or a warrant, I control your life. Remember when the officer who killed Stephon Clark didn't get charged for murder? That was me, the district attorney said. No crime had been committed because no law had been broken. The cops now be smashing, they laid down the law, and there's still enough space on this bed to either put you down or bend you over. Don't you get it? I am your God. I kill and receive no punishment. What's an eye for an eye when you are Hammurabi's code? I kept slavery alive, rebranded it the correctional institution. Schools are still segregated. Ask your taxpayers. Clean water only goes to the fairest skin. Look at Flint. I don't change. I evolve. I am the law. Ain't it ironic? White paper has more privilege than black people. White people will protect me just so I can harm you, and you think bullets are your enemy. Is 12 the reason why you scared? Afraid to be put in a box and have the walls close in on you? That's what project housing is for. So the next time you want change, want a revolution, want equality, remember, I am your biggest threat. White paper with black words written by white men out to destroy black worlds. I be paper cut deep. I make 3/5 of a person into 12% of the American population and convert that into 34% of the prison system. Even though black people but 100% of this nation, I'm evil like that. I'm legal like that. I'll outlive you and your people, and by the looks of it, I'm almost done. I be the law. Obey me or break me. I will be enforced by any means necessary.
Wow. I just want to be real clear that on this stage tonight, we have heard persona poems, we've heard praise poems, we've heard protest poems, we've got all kinds of forms happening on this stage. They talk about the diversity of quote unquote slam culture, performance art. They need to come into this room because they are letting us know what poetry can be and the breadth of poetry. This is why when people say it was a slam poem, I'm like, what does that mean, right? Because there are so many kinds of poems that can exist on this stage. So thanks for that reminder. We have a 9.7, a 9.9, and a 10. On deck, we have the last poet of the night, Gelila Mccannon. They're gonna get ready, but right now, please put your hands together for Harper Howard. You got this? Just say your poem. They just wanna hear your poem. Is this okay? How's the mic? Okay, all right.
I need to get something off my chest. When When I was in 3rd grade, I tried to climb the tulip tree in my backyard. Using the pool ladder, I hoisted myself onto the first branch, leaving indents on my hand as I gripped tighter, going higher and higher. The ground loomed below me. Suddenly, I was higher than the shed. I kept going, the branches getting smaller. I thought I could do it, when suddenly, at the utmost unimaginable point, the branch breaks. Suddenly, I am free falling through the ground, and I throw my hands out to catch myself. My wrist broke in 3 spots that night. I remember that it broke. They say that humans can't remember the sensation of pain, but I don't know why I can't forget the pain of my father telling me I couldn't be a boy, that I could like girls. I didn't fit into his box. My wrist took 3 months to heal, and my heart has yet to mend from the years of a balanced relationship, tiptoeing over a ledge and live. Sometimes we fall off, we fight, we argue. There's months we go where we don't talk to each other, no text. I don't come home. And sometimes I throw myself off the ledge, I fall into oblivion, and the only thing that clings to me is a chest binder that's too tight and I can't breathe. Maybe it's my anxiety making me gasp for air, or maybe it's the fear that no one's gonna be here tomorrow. Trans youth are 3 times more likely to kill themselves than other LGBT youth. Sometimes it's important just to tell someone you're there. Because at the end of the day, Instagram won't be a battlefield. People won't be there to tell me I'm a girl because I know who I am, and every day is a new day. But first, I need to get something off my chest.
God, they're so good. They're so good. I just think, for me, what is a beautiful thing of witnessing art is that, like, every wound needs a witness, right? That so much of learning shame is learning silence. And that this is completely antithetical to that notion, right? It is literally saying, like, this is how we liberate ourselves, by making you see me as I see me and acknowledge I exist, right? And so that reminder as I was sitting here of, like, this is the point. Not the scores, not whatever's happening up here, but literally the poets who got up here and said, I have something on my heart and I need you to hear. Like, that's beautiful. Our score from low to high is a 9.6, a 9.8, and a 9. I did that in reverse order. We have a 9, a 9.6, and a 9.8. But give it up for the poet. On deck. We don't have anyone competing. I'm gonna do a poem while the judges tabulate. But right now, so I'm on deck. I'm gonna go get ready in the corner. But right now, please put your hands together for the last poet of this poetry slam, Gelila Mccannon, representing the DC Youth Slam team.
You call my mother an illegal alien. Think she stutters with that accent. She's only holding herself back from swearing at you in her tongue. Hope I don't finish it for her. You confuse her hair with the history lesson. You think you need to pinpoint the spot on the continent, more Indian, slightly African with a bit of European highlights. Even in a graveyard, she's seen as a trespasser. So me and my father buried my mother in her homeland. She became citizen to a grave, only finding freedom in a small casket. I remember being tired of my name. Like it didn't grow from my mother's roots. Like it didn't mean holy, but sunk in water. Being tired of asking where it came from. I just wanted something pretty to say after introductions. I just wanted someone to smile and look at me with understanding eyes, not one similar to an audience in a circus act. The first generation girl is taught to speak in silence. Think she has nothing to say. No, maybe she doesn't know how to say it. Maybe not in English. Plays in the street, scrapes her palm on the sidewalk, lets this land hurt her first. She thinks that's what it means to be American. I know what it is to be an American. See the attitude in my size? How I walk into a classroom like I discovered it. Watch this country celebrate Christopher Columbus and think that I too can conquer a new motherland, even if it don't belong to my mother. No one grabbed at his wrists and spit his name into a fire, destroyed his background and made him shed his culture, oblivious of the small Ethiopian family that would soon grow a fear of heights just because of how many planes they'll fly. Back and forth, growing accustomed to the sea, thick like my name and my mother's stubborn accent. Like it doesn't mean holy water. My tears, their own religion, but my blood is divine. They are holy and they are mine. When I mourn, I shave my head, light my hair, cut my hands and bleed onto coals, scream through plain or sea, loud enough to shatter heaven's gates, heaven, where my mother finds a new country as I find mine.
Woo! We are figuring out the scores of who the top scorers are. I want to make one quick announcement. I have seen phones out while there were poets on stage. Just a reminder that these are youth poets. If you are planning to upload any of these videos, you need to speak to them. You need to ensure that you have permission because we don't know what is going out there. So unless you got a media release, you need to check, right? Because we want to make sure that we are protecting their voices, but also their bodies and their visual images and where they end up. So just be mindful, y'all. That's all right? Y'all good? The scores for the last poet of the last round. We have a 9.3, a 9.5, and a 9.5, but give it up for the poet. While we get the scores, I'm gonna just tell y'all a quick story, a quick little poem, and then we're gonna bring up the finalists. Cool? Y'all have been lovely. How many people is this your first slam? Hey! Yes, first timers, welcome. I hope this is not your last slam. I see some folks like, nah, I'm coming back next year. I'm on it. I wanna tell you all a story that I try to keep top of mind whenever I am in spaces where I'm educating or where I'm the person in charge, quote unquote. I got my master's in creative writing from the University of Maryland. And, okay, UMD, yeah. That wasn't my experience, but yeah. The program I was in was a really difficult program in that it was, there were only 30 students. The cohort was pretty small. My cohort was approximately 10 students. I was the only person in my cohort of Afro descent. So I was the darkest person in every single workshop, with being that I'm light-skinned is a problem, because that means there's a lot of folks that ain't in this room. I was the only Latina who was writing about that experience, and I was the only person from a major city, right, who was writing about the city I was from. If you can't tell from my accent, I'm from New York. And yeah, hey. What this meant was that I would come to workshop, and workshops are usually spaces where you turn in poems and the writer sits silently as you get feedback, right? I would turn in poems and I would get them back, and all the Spanish words would be circled, and all the slang had question marks, and I would have to sit silently as people misinterpreted my poem for however long my workshop was, right? And it's in those spaces that I was told I was going to be receiving my credentials. in spaces that didn't always honor what my voice was actually trying to do. And it really hit me that maybe my project was gonna be different than my classmates when my professor came to class, and he was an old school dude, right? What women in the face, long ass beard, the kind of professor who has a really melodious voice. So anytime he talks, you wanna lean in, and then he says something real problematic, and you're like, lean back. That kind of professor. He comes to class one day and he's like, I just read the most amazing poem about deer. And I have no beef with deer. I think venison is delicious. I think Bambi's a great movie. I am not here to hate on anybody's wildlife, right? But I think in spaces like that, or in spaces where we went to high school, we go to school, we have this perception of what a poem can be about. And we're often taught that poems are about flowers and clouds and deer. And I think the pastoral poem is an incredible form. However, I think there's a lot of things we can write about. So this professor goes on and on for 2.5 hours about this deer poem, and then goes one step further and says, I want everybody in the room to write an animal ode. And an ode is a praise poem, right? It's a poem that takes something simple and elevates it to a greater height. Like Pablo Neruda's Ode to the Artichokes, or Ode to the Socks, which took a domestic item and then talked about revolution, right? And so my professor goes to one class and he's like, what would you write about? And my classmate says, well, I would write about the blackbird, which I don't think is an original answer, right? Because the poem 13 Ways How to See a Blackbird, I think covered that. I think we're good here, right? He goes to another class, my classmate's like, I would write about sea anemones. And your girl is Googling on the table like, what the is an anemone? How do we spell anemone? And then my professor gets to me, and the one piece of writing advice they love to give you in these programs is write what you know. And growing up in New York City, there's one creature I know really well. So I puff up my chest and I'm like, I'm gonna write about rats. And I'm hyped, right? I heard somebody saying pigeons. Pigeons are just rats with wings. Squirrels are just rats with nicer coats. They're all rats, and we know them well. And I'm hyped, right? I feel like I'm on Family Feud. Like, good answer, you did that, right? Talk about the rat. And my professor looks at me and says, rats are not noble enough creatures for a poem. Liz, I think you need more experiences. What I love about the folks who came up on this stage today is that they talked about the experiences they had had in their life. And that if you think you can look at someone at their age, at how they present, at how they speak, and think you know their story, you already made the first mistake. That we don't know the experiences of other people, and we can't gauge what they can or shouldn't write about. That you write about what moves you, right? And so I wrote my rat poem. It's called Rat Ode. It's my official clap back to that professor. But mainly it serves as a reminder for anybody who has ever been told your story is too small or too ugly or too different for high art, that we are all of us deserving of poetry. So this poem is for every rat in the room. For the professor who told me rats are not a noble enough creature for a poem, a rat ode. Because you are not the admired nightingale. Because you are not the noble doe. Because you are not the picturesque ermine, armadillo, or bat. They have been written and I don't know their song the way I know you're scuttling between walls. The scent of your collapsed corpse rotting beneath floorboards. Your frantic squeal as you pull at your own fur from glue traps, ripping flesh from skin in an attempt to survive. Because in July of '97, you birthed a legion on 109th, swarmed from behind the dumpsters, made our streets infamous for something other than crack. Shoot, we nicknamed you Cat Killer. Raced with you through open hydrants, squeaked like you when Siete blasted aluminum bat into your brethren's skull. The sound slapped down dominoes. You reigned that summer rat, and even when they sent exterminators, half dead and on fire, you pushed on. Because even though you are an inelegant, simple mammal bottom feeder, always freaking famished, little ugly thing who feasts on what crumbs fall from the corners of our mouths. You live uncuddled, uncoddled, can't be bought at Petco and fed to fat snakes because you are not the maze rat of labs, pale, pretty-eyed, trained. You raise yourself, sharp fang, clawed, scarred, patched dark. Because of this, he should love you. But look at the beast, the poet tells me. The table is already full, and rat, you are not a right-worthy thing. Every time they say that, take your gutter, your dirt coat, filth this page, rat. Scrape your underbelly against streets, concrete. You better squeak and raise the whole world, rat. Let loose a plague of words, rat, and remind them that you, that I, we are worthy of every poem. Here. I invite all the folks. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing space with me. I'm going to call all of the poets up to the stage. Please put your hands together for all of the poets. While they are coming to the stage, please give a round of applause for the judges who had the hardest job in the room next to the poets. Every single one of these young people deserve a round of applause, whether or not they are a top scorer. Y'all were beautiful. You were wonderful. You were so good. Yes, 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 standing ovation, yes. That's right, that's right. In third place, receiving a $100 gift card, we have Destiny Butler. Oh yeah, I got you, yes. You stand up and hear me. In second place, receiving a $250 gift card, we have Amina Fatima. In first place, receiving a $500 gift card. Let's start we have Delicia Green. But give it up for all of the poets.
Yeah, I know, like, wow.
I think we have closing remarks. I want to thank you all so much for being here, for supporting these poets. If you heard something tonight that you loved, that moved you, that made you cry, that inspired you in some capacity, please let the poets know, because I know it's not only the top scorers who touched us. And so make sure that you let these folks know that they did work tonight, because they did. And you all did work tonight. So I hope that you feel that energy of being lifted after an event like this one. This is what storytelling can do. I appreciate you all. Have a wonderful night.